Alright, the Mavs jumped on the Nugs out the gates because the Nugs had too many issues to solve, and in the first, it was showing in all aspects, so the Mavs got to establish a rhythm quick. In transition, it was just the Mavs' pace, and them pushing the rock off every stop, especially the turnovers, because the Nugs were committing uncharacteristic ones all night, not just in that quarter, so the Mavs were constantly capitalizing with a run out. The Nugs were forcing way too many passes that had small windows, or was way too loose with the rock, so those were big contributors to some of their transition issues, and then to make matters worse, their half-court defense was just as bad. I think they made the right adjustment to have Yoke show off Nembhard's screening actions, because he killed him for dropping in the last meeting, so they were able to contain him, but their backside rotations were atrocious, and that was the biggest issue for them throughout. When the help was there was no help for the helper, because they weren't shifting when they needed to, and sometimes it was just an awareness issue, so the Mavs got to constantly exploit their advantages. Ant was both the beneficiary and creator, because if he wasn't just eating on the backside, then he was creating it in the post whenever he forced the tilt, so he was always either scoring or creating opportunities for the others to score. The main beneficiary of all the pace and backside issues was really Coop, because those easy ones allowed him to get going, so those lays eventually turned into trays, and he was the main matchup the Nugs couldn't solve. From the second onward, they were able to get away with dropping against Nembhard's screening actions, and really any of the Mavs, because their rotations got a lot better throughout, but they could not stop Coop, so any adjustment they tried to make against him just didn't work. A lot of that just stemmed from his size advantage, because when they had to run their 4-guard lineup, they didn't have a defender that could contain him, so they tried to mix in zone randomly, and they even tried a couple schemes in man to take away his screening actions. One option was to have Yoke show off his screens at times, then another option was to hide Yoke, because they didn't want him in the action, so in the third, he was assigned to Caleb Martin for a stretch, then in the fourth, he was assigned to Gafford for a stretch when both sides were running their double big lineup, and those were their best efforts to take away Coop and Ant's two-man game, but none of that worked. All those really did was open up the same or more advantages, because Caleb Martin burned Yoke for cheating off him in the third, Coop was still able to get his or make the right pass, and when they were hiding Yoke in the fourth, Ant just got to exploit the tilts again, so no matter what adjustment the Nugs tried to make, the Mavs always had an answer for them. Every time the Nugs tried a scheme, they kept backfiring, so they kept having to revert, but at least their offense was rolling from the second onward, because their scoring allowed them to stay afloat, and per usual, a lot of that was stemming from their stars. As expected, the Mavs were having Ant show off Maul's screening actions early, or even having him outright switch at times, because they were really trying to contain Maul around the corner, and the one thing Maul did well was just keep his dribble alive. That patience allowed him to still get to his spots, but what made it even easier was just Ant noticeably getting slower as the game went on, because he was starting to drop more instead of maintaining his high levels, and it really took until the fourth before he finally got back to consistently showing, so through three, Maul was just getting his. At least they were able to contain Yoke in the two-man game whenever they did concede a switch, because they were quick to fire once Yoke caught the rock, and it was no different in his inverteds, so they were even able to contain his patented action. Most times, they were able to just get away with the hedge, so they didn't have to switch that often, and the only thing they couldn't stop was Yoke's jumper, because he was automatic on the pop, or even just pulling over top. In the fourth, the rock was obviously in Maul's hands, because they were going to their two-man game the entire quarter, but without the others, they wouldn't have even been in that position, and them being a part of that crucial 27-12 run at the end of the third. That was by far their most important stretch of the night, because that was what finally got them back into the game, and all they did was play off Yoke as a hub, or use their pace to get behind the Mavs defense, so they deserve a lot of credit, especially Tim and Bruce. In the half court, both of them were always ready to play off Maul and Yoke. Then in transition, both of them were always running the floor, So between their play and Maul and Yoke's two-man game, they could have completed the comeback, and they just unfortunately missed a couple big opportunities. First was Yoke missing a wide open look from deep in the last 4 minutes, because he was making that shot all night, and it would have kept it a one possession game instead of two in the midst of the Mavs' big run. So the Mavs were just fortunate to have dodged that, but they were even more fortunate to have dodged a potential winner from P-Watt. If anything, I actually thought both teams made the right play on that possession, because for the Nugs, Yoke made the right pass, and for the Mavs, they made the right decision to collapse onto Yoke, because if Yoke was able to get a flow off after they conceded the switch, that would have been a guarantee too. So it was better for them to force his spray and take their chance on P-Watt trying to hit a wide open look from the corner. Just watch the tape